Well, my first year at camp, a Bible camp, a Black Duck camp, I wasn't quite 12 years old, and the missionary speaker was with the Free Church out in Congo. And during that week, they asked for those who, are you willing to be a missionary? And I was willing. And actually, the idea of being a missionary never really left me. I kept thinking about it, especially the stories that I read of missionaries in Africa, life in Africa. I would draw the maps of Africa. It just intrigued me. But then when I became a senior in high school, and I was facing my future and what am I really going to do? During that year, I attended a missions meeting with my folks and the pastor's wife. And the speaker was from Greece. And he gave an invitation for if those who are willing to be made willing to come forward. The pastor's wife and the pastor, and praying with me, I finally said, Lord, I'm willing to go, sign up for mission. I'm willing to go and prepare for missions. The peace of mind that I got in saying, Lord, I will go and take missions, prepare to be a missionary, that's all the proof I needed to know that I was in God's will, and it was okay. Well, I was never the bravest of souls. I was shy, but I was convinced that God wanted me to go, and so I knew He was with me. I wasn't totally alone. In Congo, they used the French for the international language, and they used Lingala as the trade language. In Congo, I had to learn the Lingala, and it was the rule of the mission was to take 3 months to learn Lingala before you start your work. But the Congo had become independent, and the missionaries had evacuated and returned, and our junior high school was in session already, and they needed their French teacher. So when I arrived, I started teaching the day after I arrived. It was my first furlough in 1963 when the doctor said, well, you have a hearing loss. But I wasn't aware of it. I really didn't do anything about it because it wasn't bothering me. But in 1975, I came home and the doctor said, you could profit by having a hearing aid. So I got my first hearing aid then. And then I came back in 1982 and I got the second hearing aid. By 1991, I noticed the children's voices, the high tone of the children is the hardest for me to hear. So I decided it was about time for me to let somebody with better ears teach the children. I was teaching 5th and 6th grade at the time. Then I thought my time in Congo was ended, so I kind of figured I was coming home to stay, but the missionaries and also the church asked me to come back out and work in literature. And that's where I was gathering the biographies, autobiographies of our older pastors. So I pulled excerpts from the Lingala book and translated them into English for people at home who had supported missionaries. I found some more missionary pictures and added that to it. But I think people who supported missionaries in Congo would be interested in hearing or reading how the Africans themselves were sent out really as missionaries into the villages. If you're seeking to know God's will for you, I'd strongly encourage you to step out in faith on the promise and God's promise in Psalm 32:8. I will instruct thee and teach thee in the way which thou shalt go. I will guide thee with mine eye. I think when you get into God's will, you don't want to walk away from it. And to me, my experience was that I was totally satisfied being in Africa. And yes, we had problems. We had demonstrations from the kids. We had all kinds of things. We had scary times. We had evacuations and whatnot. but I knew God wanted me there, and that inner peace and accepting the fact that that's where I belong, that kind of takes care of all the rough edges. Let the Lord lead you into His job for you, whether it's here in the States or overseas. You will face decisions to make and problems to solve, but you'll have real inner peace and total satisfaction when you know that you're in God's will.